Hello friends and welcome back. Well, it's Sunday afternoon and I'm not going to lie, I am so tired. Actually, it reminds me of that Beatles song. Remember that song? I'm so tired. I haven't slept a wink. I'm so tired. My mind is on the blink. It's now that mid-afternoon lull. So I weakened. I'm not going to lie. I made a coffee. There you go. Anyway, I've been wanting to catch up with you for a while. This year, first of all, can I just say, this year, how do you describe it? It's a spin out. I liken 2021 to that feeling of walking on rocks and stones and pebbles. So you're aware that you're walking on solid ground, or should I say you have solid ground beneath your feet. But it's an uneven surface, and those rocks and pebbles tend to move and rearrange as you take each step. And there's a little bit of moss over there, baby. So, you know what I mean? At any moment, you could slip and fall, and I certainly have a few times this year. So I can honestly say I'm feeling that this year is far more challenging than 2020. As a general rule, and we're only halfway there. I hope things brighten up. So it's not bad, it's just tough, it's challenging, and I know what comes out of that is a great deal of personal growth, and that is what I've been paying particular attention to. Maybe it's a little like learning to ski. You know, you have those days where you just excel and you take that downhill run and you're so proud of yourself, but then the next day you could fall, you know, time and time again, and you think, really, what happened to all the skills I had yesterday? It's that unpredictable, and I do equate a lot of that erratic energy to the 5 umbrella energy that we've got going with 2021. I don't know about you, but I am feeling it, and even though that's just a general energy, but it just feels like, bang, life can change so fast at any moment for any person. In fact, I received some news that really took me by surprise this week just gone. I found out a friend of mine, a lovely friend of mine, who unfortunately I haven't seen of late due to the fact that we no longer live in the same city, but when we did, we were very good friends. In fact, we worked together and also socialized together. And she passed away. She's younger than me, and that really knocked me sideways, to be honest with you. And I'm going to release a couple of other videos where I share the fact that I really went into shock when I found out 2 people. Now, I know this is going to sound a little weird for some of you, but 2 people that I don't know passed away earlier this year. But you feel like, well, I felt like I knew them because I've been following them on social media for a while. So I'm sure, you know, in our community at least, I think you'll have an understanding of what I'm talking about, because most of you I haven't met. 99% of you I haven't met. However, I feel very close to you. You know who you are. I don't have to mention any names. And it's a very loving and compassionate community. And so it's that sort of feeling when someone you've never met in person, but you may have communicated with over social media or just followed them on a very long personal journey of their own, and all of a sudden you find that they have left their body. And both of which are younger than me. One, I am well and truly old enough to be her mother, and she is Canadian, but ended up just through travel on the other side of my town. I couldn't believe it. I thought, wait a minute, I know that train station. It was just, yeah. So I'm talking a travel channel in this case. But point is, this young lady is no longer with us for very different reasons to the other person that I'm referring to, who was 50 years old. And for those of you who are younger, let me tell you, 50 is young. When you get there, you'll realize you don't feel any different. No, like the essence of you remains the same. It's just that the years go on. But she was a yoga teacher, very healthy, and meditation and the whole bit. She was a wonderful, wonderful teacher, and I came across her well before COVID, but she saved my sanity during COVID. And she died very, very unexpectedly and left behind a husband and two beautiful young boys. So it's just things like that. That's what I mean, that's thing where, boom. Good old 2021, you know, thanks for that on their behalf. So what it does is it propels you back into your gratitude practice, does it not? And I certainly have been thinking about all the blessings in my life, despite many challenges along the way. Personally, so many things I could share, but I won't do that to you at this point. But what I was alluding to was I did record some videos. I'm having a really it's a bit of an internal battle for me regarding social media. I wouldn't call it a love-hate relationship, but I would say that it oscillates between full-on enthusiasm. There's so much I want to share, and that stands to this very moment. But then all of a sudden I find myself backtracking and going back into my cave because I just feel so very private, and I have for the past few years. So yeah, I'm a chatterbox. I'm friendly. There's lots I want to share, and I want to have fun and all that stuff. Yet there's a part of me that just needs to be quiet and go back, as I say, go back into the cave, as I like to call it, and just concentrate on my own journey quietly. Yeah, and so what happens is I'll record some videos, and then all of a sudden that I'll be hit with that wave of just a yearning to be in solitude. And so I find I don't upload those videos, and then later on I think, well, too much time has passed. It's just a very bizarre cycle, but I'm doing my best to honour my own personal journey and not let my ego get carried away with, we'll do it because it's social media, if that makes any sense. Anyway, I began what I thought was going to be a little series called Growth Narrative. And really all it is my reflections upon cards that I draw at the beginning of any given month. But I don't draw cards for predictive reasons. I don't draw cards to catch a glimpse as to what's going to unfold in the upcoming month, you know, that kind of stuff. Even though I will say, you know, strangely, the cards are often predictive, but my main objective is not to predict my future. It is to interpret the cards, to see what messages that I get intuitively from the cards as I draw them with these particular prompts at the beginning of every month. And then the fun part is reflecting at the end of the month. Did I receive the message? Like, how did things unfold as compared to what I saw in the cards? So rather than it be about prediction, it's about my relationship with the cards and whether I understand them or not. Because each month one will choose a different deck, no doubt, or maybe even a combination of decks and all that kind of stuff. I never cease to be amazed with the cards and the combinations and what unfolds. So that's my growth narrative. It's obviously about my journey with the cards and how I continue to learn even after practicing for so many years. So I have a couple of them sitting in my YouTube, in my YouTube library. And I thought, well, it's too late now. One's March, one's May. And then I thought, no. See, now that's a silly ego assumption, because it's not about the time frame. It doesn't matter that the cards were associated with the month of March. Who cares? It's what happened, what unfolded as a result of drawing those cards. And if I remember correctly, it was March when I discovered that these two beautiful human beings left their bodies, and realized just, what shocked me was how upset I felt over losing two people that I've never met. Maybe just because my sensitivities are heightened this year, it certainly feels that way. Someone who is very comfortable with my own company, and as I was saying to you before, I crave to go back into that cave of solitude, Yet this year is a strange one. I feel like I need to be there, yet I feel very isolated in many ways. It has been quite challenging mentally and emotionally this year, I feel, for so many different reasons. And yeah, so I just want to say, you know, if you're feeling the pinch, do remember that you are not alone. And I think it's a really good idea to very regularly pick the phone up and tell someone that you love them. And I'd give anything to be able to hear my friend's voice. Wow. Anyway. I've got a bit of a mess on the floor. Hello. You know, if you know me at all, I've been culling, gently culling for quite a while. Just slowly but surely, incrementally, I find myself going towards less rather than more, including my decks. I will never part with any decks that I love, but I am certainly not a collector, and I'm finding now, this is the new dynamic which I thought was noteworthy. I'm starting to feel the desire. Is it a desire? That doesn't sound right, but it's like this pressing need to release some decks that I love. What? What did I just say? Yeah. It's not like I can't accommodate more decks. I have plenty of room. But that's not the point. It's not about that. So anyway, long story short, I started a trial cupboard, which is on this side of the house. My sacred space where I keep all my goodies and my treasures is on this side of the house. So of course the idea is if I go into my sacred space and I go to reach for a deck, oh, it's not in here, it's in that cupboard, that's a good sign that that deck is meant to stay. Sadly, I will admit that I think one, maybe two decks did I crave to rescue from that cupboard. There's a message in that, my friends. That means quite a few of these beautiful decks that I do love are destined to find a new home. But I share this with you because I find it interesting that the decks that I choose to keep are decks that I love, but I don't use them very often. And the decks that I've chosen to release are decks that I love, that I don't use very often. I'll give you an example. Here's a deck that I love. Voyager Tarot. Okay, I had to take a quick break and now it's going to start getting darker, so I need to scurry along. But I began to say the Voyager Tarot was gifted to me by a friend, and as much as I was very grateful, I still am, quite frankly, but I wouldn't suggest that this was my favourite artwork, especially collage decks right across the board wasn't really my thing. And that's why I am so very grateful that my friend gave me this deck, because I would never have purchased it. But wow, this deck is fantastic. And first of all, the guidebook's so good. And I'm not going to go into, in too deep with every deck to show you because there's no time. But I just wanted to say, even just the first few lines of the intro, I really like what James Wanless had to say. And you're saying that this tarot deck is a vehicle for a journey into your inner universe, a symbolic pathway to a full realization of all your abilities and potentials. You are a voyager, a traveler through life, and like its namesake, the Voyager space probe, Voyager Tarot will take you on a wondrous journey of self-discovery. As soon as I read that, I thought, oh, hello, this is it. That's what it's all about for me, that journey into self. The more I used this deck, the more I grew to love it. And I actually grew to really appreciate the artwork. And now I have to say, I wouldn't say no to a collage deck. Not every deck. But the thing is, it's so fascinating because it gives you so much to dive into. The more you look at every card, the more you see. And that is why I will always deem this like a psychological tool. It's a counseling tool. It's not just a, hey, what's coming up next week kind of journey. So this is a deck that I don't use regularly, but that's a very conscious decision. I don't want it to be a daily or weekly player. This has a special role. And so I just know that this deck is meant to stay and it will stay, as opposed to another beautiful deck, the Wildwood. Now, this is the type of artwork that I would say, yes, I am attracted to this artwork. I do love it. I do appreciate it. It's stunningly beautiful. But for some reason, I've drifted away from decks that are, let's say, nature-based, animal-based, Celtic-y. Did I just create a word? But you know what I mean. It has that Celtic flavour, or has grown out of Celtic mythology. I don't know what it is. I do not pick this deck up, nor do I crave to pick it up. And even holding it now, I just feel, you know, the beauty is evident. It's right there. But I just don't feel like it's meant to stay with me. What is the difference here? They're two very different decks, but that's not what I'm talking about. Why do I know that this one stays and this one is to go? Anyway, so that's one pair. Here's another, the Gorgons Tarot. I really love this artwork, and I do appreciate the fact that, well, let's just say it's a bit of a double-edged sword. These cards are the size of a butter plate, but what I love about it is you can pick up on every pen stroke because of the size. You can see so clearly into the intricate detail of, like this down here, for an example. You can see absolutely every detail, and I love that about this deck. But is it easy for me to shuffle? The answer would be no. I can just get my fingers around this, and once you've got the whole deck, put it this way. For me, it's much easier to just place them on the floor and swizzle them around. I love the fact that it's round. This is only one of 2 round decks that I have. So you could say or suggest it's awkward for me to use. It's not the easiest deck to shuffle, etc. and so on. But I know I'm meant to keep this deck. Another deck. Well, let's do this one first. Dreams of Gaia. Now, I am one of those people that, it's funny, this wasn't the plan, to use this as, or more like, an oracle deck than a tarot deck. That was not the plan. I wanted to use it as a tarot deck, got to know the system and da-da-da. But I just found myself at the end of the day, due to the fact that I love the guidebook, but it's so intricate, so detailed, I should say, that I found 1 or 2 cards at once was more than enough. So in a sense, I did use it like an oracle. But what a reader. The guidebook for this deck is one of those where I'd swear that someone was commissioned to write that book for me, myself, and I, pertaining to my specific life journey. Amazes me. And I've seen it happen with friends also who have used this deck. But I'm not picking it up anymore. I still love it. I appreciate it so much. I think the artwork is beautiful. Ooh, I just heard she's releasing similar style artwork to this, but an oracle deck. It's in the works, I think, at the moment. If that's the case, I think that may suit me more than this. This I use more than the old classic Elemental Tarot. Yet I feel this is the one I'm to keep. Maybe because the artwork is quite unique in many ways and I love the brightness of the colours. But I mean, that's just aesthetics. Is this going to be a working deck or not? Well, it's not a regular player at all. I would call this a rare player, but it still seems to have its place. Like when the time is right, this is the deck that comes out. This is by Carolyn Smith. This is I think this is 1988 publication. Anyway, it was re-released, wasn't it? Somewhere in the 2000s. Quite recently, I think. Was it the last couple of years? Something like that. Anyway, it's around. I feel I am to keep this deck. Whereas if you would ask me, well, which deck out of the 2 has been serving your personal journey more than the other, I would say this. Am I alone here? Go figure. Another deck that I truly love, but I don't use often, but I know will stay, is the Beautiful Gill. In fact, this was also gifted to me for my birthday, a few years ago now, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, when this was very, very hard to find, and my friend tracked a copy down in Texas, God bless her, and sent it all the way to Australia for me. And it's just special because I don't know, I've got a thing about pre-loved decks that have been well looked after. There's something about it that I really appreciate. Another beautiful deck, the Animal Spirit, Kim Krans. I think the artwork is stunning. And I said I wasn't going to show cards, but just, all right, just like one or two. Look at this. Hello. It's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And I am crazy about animals. Like, I just adore animals. Doesn't matter what they are. I'm an animal lover through and through. Why do I just feel, I don't know, a bit of a disconnect at the moment with nature-based decks? Nature and animals. This is a tricky one for me. It's such a beautiful deck, such a beautiful stock. But right now I'm not picking it up, nor am I picking up the Wild Unknown. But this is going to go in the pending tray, I think, pending cupboard, to be reconsidered. It's not going to walk out the door immediately, but it may. It may. This one surprised me. Madame Endora's, you all know this deck. This is a cool deck, and I used it lovingly and willingly. But I feel that she is ready to move on. Wow, that has actually come as a surprise. So I don't use it often at all anymore. But even when I do, and I get, well, the answers I need, I suppose we always do, but I just feel it's time to go. It's kind of weird. Okay, how often do I pick up the Deviant Moon? Not very often at all. I have the beautiful hardcover book looking at me just over there. But this is a stayer. This one is not going anywhere, but I rarely pick it up. The thing that I find so weird is it's just so, like, I feel so certain about many of them that are to go. Book of Shadows is going to go. I really liked this deck. I feel like I gained a lot from using this deck, but I think it's time to move on. As opposed to the Puppet Theatre Tarot by Maria Carrara. I really do appreciate this deck. I think it's so clever, so innovative. And, you know, all the world's a stage and all the men and women merely players. This is the play of life. And I just resonate so closely with this deck. And having studied acting and theatre, I love it in more ways than one. Yet I surprise myself. I haven't been using it very much at all. But is it going to go? Nope, it is definitely staying. Maria actually wrote to me at some point, years ago now, and she said, it would be a few years ago, and she said she was having talks with, I wouldn't necessarily deem it negotiating just yet, but she was certainly holding some meetings and talks with US Games regarding the possibility of releasing this. And I was so excited, yet I've not heard a word. I really wish this would, this would be picked up by one of the big publishers. I'd love to see it more this one accessible. I'm in a real dilemma about. The Solara Occulto. This was going to be my, see, it's not a clone, that's the whole point. RWS based, RWS sister deck. I love the fact that there are some really quirky characters in this deck. The artwork is beautiful, the colour palette's beautiful, so earthy, and it's just delicious. I don't know, what can I say? But I thought this is going to satisfy all those cravings for RWS-based decks because it's a little different. But, all that said, can you just pick it up and read it? Of course you can. You know exactly where you're at with every card. But it's just a little different. Look at this, Ten of Swords as an example. Little mermaid. There are some beautiful, beautiful creatures in here and people and characters. I'm just not picking it up as I did. This is really blowing my mind. This one here, I would bet money. This is going to stay. So I'm keeping the elemental, yet I'm not keeping this beauty. What? I don't know. I guess this will go in the maybe, maybe not cupboard for the moment, but I've got an inkling that it's to go. My gut is saying you need to move this deck on and make way for something else. Goodness me. This was gifted to me along with the book by a friend. I'm so very grateful because from what I understand, the book is still sought after, even though the deck was re-released. That's a shame it didn't come with the bigger book. I don't use this often, but I feel it certainly does have a place. I will be keeping this. Another deck that I used to use often that I don't anymore is the gorgeous, quirky Spirit Speak, but this is staying. I was obsessed, speaking of quirky, with this colourful character, the Sacred Rose Tarot. Different, bright, gorgeous, otherworldly, but it's time to go. But I still love it. I still love this deck, but I feel it's time to go. I bought the Italian version, as it happens, of the Tarot of the Sphinx. This is a really good reader. It's RWS, so easy. Yeah, I've always had very, very clear, concise messages come through with this card. I really love it. But I am starting to get the feeling, and it's my only Egyptian tarot deck. Why? Why would I consider giving it away or selling it off for a song? I don't know. But I'm beginning to think that it's time to let it go. So I use it from time to time. I don't use it often, but I'm getting that message. This one I use even less, and I'm talking about the indie version of the, oh my God, Antique Anatomy. Donk, have another sip of coffee, dear. I'm sinking rapidly. It's going to go. I still have the Oracle of Oddities 1 through 3. I was obsessed with those cards for so long. I don't use them very often, but as it stands, I'm going to keep the decks. But I've got a funny feeling that it won't be too long before I let them go. There was one more I thought I wanted to... Oh, this one comes as a huge surprise. The Beautiful Wooden Tarot. You know this deck. It is stunning. The artwork is absolutely beautiful. All those neutral tones. I mean, look, it matches my home, for goodness sake. Yet, I feel like it's time. Did I say that right? I feel like it is time to release this deck. It makes me sad, but I feel that, you know, it's that yearning. It's not a yearning. I keep saying a yearning or a desire. It's a need. It's almost like this inner instruction coming through saying, no, it's time to let it go. So what am I focused on just before I end this long video? I found myself steering towards a more modern, bright, well, example, the Bright Future Tarot. I'm obsessed. I love this deck more than I can say. Where did it go? I say, where did it... Oh, there it is. It's an everyday deck, but it's not stock standard RWS clone. There's the Three of Swords as an example. But if you are an RWS person, of course you can see that it's based and you can pick it up and use it without hesitation. But it does come with a printable guidebook, which is wonderful. But I just love the artwork, love the colour palette. I love everything about this deck. It's absolutely beautiful. But this is the type of deck I seem to be moving towards at this time. Look at that Magician card. So, you know, you don't just have the same RWS characters doing the same thing, and that's what I really appreciate. Two of Cups is beautiful. And just as another example, here is the Seven of Pentacles. Not the 8, the 7. So this is one of the best things I did for myself this year, and that's buying this deck. I'm pretty darn keen on a Lunar Soul. But I've just got to make sure that it's not my ego just falling in love with the colour palette alone, because I do love it very much. I was a little bit on the fence in the early stages of that deck's release. But as time goes on, again, I just keep feeling this push towards that deck. That deck is calling. So there's something in that deck that's going to trigger something in me that needs to be acknowledged. That's all I can put it down to. This is another deck that I love. I bought this in Sedona, Arizona. It's very special to me. I unpacked this deck while I sat on a vortex Seriously. All the cards sitting on that beautiful red soil of Sedona. So it was cleansed and charged up in such a way that it's very dear to my heart. I have the fondest memories of traveling around Arizona with this deck. I don't use it often at all, but I know it is to stay with me. So I think you get the idea. I will say just quickly, another daily player is this is the indie version of the Light Seers. Again, it's the colours, it's the people. I know some people do have issue with this deck, claiming that they're all slim and pretty, and well, you know, I guess you're not wrong there. But I don't find that an irritation for me. I don't know, it's just such a good reader. And clients, men and women alike, by the way, really love this deck when I'm, offer them choices as to which deck that they would like to work with. So there's definitely some magic in this deck. Since I've started a Lenormand course, Whisper Lenormand, absolutely beautiful. Retro Lenormand, quirky. It's retro, but it's modern art, you might suggest, compared to the more traditional look. They're both fun in their own way. This classic beauty I've had for years, and I feel it's time for me to let it go, which shocks me, to be honest. And this quirky little number here, I feel is to stay. Go figure. So I'll let you know how I go, but I do plan on honouring this push towards releasing decks and giving them to a home where they will be used and utilised and loved accordingly. I guess it's just, for me, the romance is over, even though I can still love and admire their beauty. But the whole point is, what is it that you need to enhance your spiritual journey? At least that is the question I have to ask myself. So anyway, this video is long, no surprise there, but I hope it inspired you to have a look through your collection and have a think about where you sit at the moment. And I hope it also inspires you to remember to practice your gratitude every day, because there are some pretty strange things going on in our world at the moment. And if you are finding yourself struggling, just know, look, there's a whole heap of us out there that are ready to reach out and support, I being one of them, because I'm certainly making my way through some personal struggles this year also. So I just want you to know, I hear you, you're not alone. Don't be afraid to reach out. So take care, and until next time, I appreciate you very much. All the best.